Hello and welcome back to this great series that we are doing, in line with the book that we have put out that is specifically designed for leaders. Now, you may be here and you haven't got the book. Can I encourage you to get the book? Or you may not know about the book, 8 qualities for great leadership that is out there. And that's okay. You're in the right place. We hope our conversation here today with my dear friend, lifelong friend, actually, Trevor Stockwell, is going to help you get closer to your goal. Who knows? Your goal might be to become an outstanding leader, or in business, or even in your family, or even in your personal life. You're going to discover the principles that truly great leaders, be it in politics, in business, in sports, whatever sphere or field, they apply these same principles. And with me, like I said, is Trevor Stockwell, a good friend of mine. Trevor, thanks again for joining me here on the show.
Great to be here. Love chatting about leadership. Love chatting with you as well. So it'll be good.
Man, this has been a long time coming. I remember you and I started talking about putting a book out there probably about 2-3 years ago. And then finally, we gathered a team of people that believed in the idea. And here we are, the book is out, and a lot of people are beginning to read that. What an incredible journey we've been. Now, a question for you. I know other people are looking to get their book out there, or a project. What is it that was the greatest learning from this whole project?
I think for me, in lots of ways, the communication aspect. Like we'd set out to include more authors than we actually did. We got the message of what we wanted to do right. But then we decided actually that it was better to sort of have less is more in certain ways. And it's about communicating what you want to achieve, and the right people will get on board with that. Everybody that's contributed to the book, it's just a really good fit. I think they all bring a different perspective from their life experiences and how they help people in their businesses already. And I think it's more of honing, because we honed our message well, we communicated it well, then honing in on who actually wanted to be involved at this point. Lots of other people that could have been involved, but just the timing and the fit wasn't quite right. So I think it's worked out really well. We've been patient as well to get to this point. I think, as you say, from the conception of an idea to sort of fulfillment can, for lots of different reasons, take longer than what you'd like. But you just have to trust the process to a large extent. I think as long as you're doing what you know you can do, the rest of it really will just fall into place at the right time.
Yes, incredible. One of the things I absolutely love about you is your concept of self-leadership, which we are going to talk about, because during this whole process, that has spanned, a considerable years, really, you have demonstrated self-leadership, getting it started, and you wrote a chapter on leadership, self-leadership. And not only did you exemplify the principles you write, and you talk about it so eloquently, and that's why we have you here today. So talk to us about your journey into self-leadership. When did it start? When did you start perhaps really looking into how to lead yourself?
It started a long time ago. In lots of ways, it actually started before I realized. And by that, I mean, I've been interested in sort of personal growth for a few decades now. Started off more from the character development. I wanted to sort of be a good person. I wanted to help people, and that sort of was really what started the growth journey for me. And then sort of along that, it's like with anything, isn't it? Once we start on a journey, other things become more evident. We realize different things, different aspects as well. And I sort of realized after a period of time that the leadership aspects that I was gravitating towards, I enjoyed learning about leadership. Then as I started looking back, I realized that I'd been demonstrating certain levels of leadership. In my teenage years, I used to try and become a world famous rock musician. Formed a few bands, sort of led those bands. They didn't get anywhere at the time. I'm not famous, not known for that, which shows that at that point my leadership level wasn't as formed as well as it is now, in a sort of slightly different way. But yeah, so I think it was learning about leadership was a gradual process. One of the things, actually, I think through many conversations we had a while back, you introduced me to the teaching of the late great Bob Proctor, and it was one of the messages that I was listening to on him talk about awareness, which really helped to sort of, I suppose, open my eyes to the reality of how much in control I could be of my actions, and that sort of feeds into the whole aspect of self-leadership, really. How well am I leading myself in all the different elements that make up life, that make up successful leadership? How am I being intentional about those things? How am I growing in those areas? And it sort of then developed more as I started leading teams, volunteers. You then become more aware of your leadership style, what's good about it, what's maybe not so good, and you need to work on certain areas. And then sort of fast forward, more recently, I joined Maxwell Leadership, became a certified team member, so learned the coaching aspects. I improved my training and communication skills through that as well. And that's more how the sort of coaching aspect and how I help other people with their own self-leadership on that journey. That's how it really started. So a long answer to a question, but it's developed over many years. I think I have to thank John Maxwell as well. I mentioned Bob Proctor. John Maxwell has been a huge mentor of mine, still is, in my growth journey, in my leadership journey as well. So it's a mix of being willing to learn, having the right sort of inputs, and then staying consistent with it, really.
Yeah, amazing. One of the things about self-leadership that I have personally come to appreciate more is setting a goal and be consistent with it and seeing it through. And I remember in our London days, when you and I used to live in London, when I used to watch very carefully how you did things, you developed this calendar. You may remember this, like when you were taking a look at how you were spending your days and literally recording it on a spreadsheet. It was so much into detail. I remember looking at that thinking, my goodness, how do you do that? Do you want to talk about that very briefly?
Yeah, it's a really good tool. I've literally just finished doing it again more recently. Just every now and again capture how your days are broken up with activity that you do, the different areas. It really, the root of it is, until we're aware of something, we're not going to change it. So if I'm not aware that, I'm saying I really want to devote more time to this and this, but in reality I'm spending less on that than maybe watching TV or something that I would consider to be less of an important activity, unless I'm aware of that, it can easily sort of like just slip away from me. And then, 6 months down the line, I've wasted the opportunity of utilizing some of that time more on the things that I want to do, things that I find fulfilling or rewarding, or ways of helping other people, however you want to define that. And it's different for different people. So it's just a way of capturing how I'm spending my time, and then looking at the percentages and say, right, that's not good enough because I say that's priority, but it's not being reflected in my actions. And then you can make changes. If I don't have that level of data, it's very hard for me to make a change. And obviously some people like data more than others. Some people are less in the detail side of it. But even a client recently, he looked at it and used it not to the level of detail that I did, but he found value in the fact of, actually, I do have 2 hours a day that I can focus on business activities or something that I want to progress. And until I started noting my time and how I was using my time, I didn't realize I actually had that amount of time that I could devote to it. So you don't have to use things exactly the same way as somebody else, but tools are there to be used in certain circumstances. They can really benefit. So yeah, I find that really useful.
Amazing. It brings me to the next subject that I want to talk about, which is self-discipline. But before I do that, there's a statement there that if you are aware and if you can see it effectively, you can change it effectively. Really, if you can't see what is happening in your life or in your business or whatever area you're trying to lead, there's no way you're going to implement the required changes straight away. You'll be just, wandering in the dark. So I love what you do about that. Let's talk about self-leadership. In your opinion, you do this all the time, but for people who are looking into this for the first time, what does self-leadership mean to you?
I think I would sort of look at it at that it's a lot of different elements within life that you're intentionally and consciously engaged in developing and progressing in a positive way. Now that can sound quite ethereal and a bit vague. So if we take, for example, our behaviors, our actions, they're linked to our thoughts and our emotions. So our thoughts affect how we feel about something. That can then affect our behaviors. So that's a few aspects. Developing a healthy mindset, adopting a sort of a can-do attitude rather than a negative attitude to challenges or to things that you want to try and accomplish. How you develop your emotional intelligence. Kylie wrote a really good chapter on emotional intelligence in the book as well. All the chapters are good on different aspects. Quite a few of them actually link really well with the self-leadership aspect, because if we're not leading ourselves well, we can't lead other people
That's right.
What we could. Maybe you get away with it for a short period of time where you're just sort of developing other people and not yourself, but eventually that catches up with you. You're not living authentically, you're not leading authentically, and at the end of the day, you're not going to be as effective. You're not going to be as happy or as fulfilled either if you're not dealing with the stuff inside first, getting that right, and then from that you get to lead other people as well.
Yeah, amazing. For me, self-leadership that I've discovered is sometimes it can be hard, but if you learn to work very hard on yourself, it becomes far much easier to deal with the world. Somebody once said, "Don't wish life was easy, wish you were better." And if you can be effective in leading yourself and taking control of what is happening within you, or your emotions, your reactions, and your decision-making process, it becomes much easier to take on a challenge, to understand other people, and to get people on board to where you want to take them to. So I absolutely love that. Now that comes with some questions. A lot of people have got misconception around self-leadership. In your journey, I think you alluded to this again in the book, what is the number one misconception that people have around self-leadership?
I think it's for a lot of people in lots of ways. Like, we can look at successful leaders and we just think, well, that works for them, but it wouldn't work at that level for me. Because I've got this, and this, or I've not got this, and this, and whatever the excuses might be, we're all susceptible to making up our own excuses or adopting those that others maybe suggest or imply for reasons why we can't do certain things. So we can easily look at other people, great leaders, and think, yeah, they're really good, but I'm not like that. And I think it's you have to disconnect yourself from that type of thinking. Otherwise you're just, you're not going to motivate yourself, you're not going to grow in those areas. And a lot of the time the excuses are just excuses for not putting the certain level of effort involved that's required, really. We'll touch on effort a little bit later, maybe in the conversation, because if you've got the wrong perspective with regards to effort, then it's going to work against you and not for you. But yeah, I think the biggest one is we just discount ourselves from being able to lead well. And that in itself just means we're listening to the wrong voice within us. I suppose linked to that as well is there can be the perception that to lead really well means you've reached mastery and perfection, that you don't make mistakes, that things just go as you want. And that's just not, it's not real, it's not true. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, we know that nobody's perfect, but for some reason we just assume that they have an advantage to be able to lead better than I can for whatever reason. And it links to the root of sort of self-belief. Why is it that you don't really believe that you could, achieve to the level of leadership that you could, or that you see around you, or that maybe others have an expectation that you can reach, but for one reason or another, you're just not in agreement, you're not just following through on that. It may well be you're listening to the wrong sort of excuses.
Yeah. It is very interesting, Trevor, I find, an approach of looking at others and think you can do them. The way I've done it, in fact, I do in all areas, is when I see somebody performing at the highest level, it inspires me. It gives me the idea that that is possible for me, because if they can do it, despite the circumstance or whatever they have, there has to be a way of doing it. Somebody is achieving that or is influencing at the highest level. If I want to be doing that, there is some clues that I can follow. And the beautiful thing about the time we live in right now is you can find those recipes, the clues quite easily, or you can engage with them, get them to mentor you and become very, very effective, rather than to use that as, no, it's them that can do it and I can do it. No, it's, oh, wow, if they can do that, it means there is a chance, as long as breath is in me, I can do that. And that great book, which I absolutely love, the Bible, says, never despise the small beginnings. You start right where you are and then progress, and you become even masterful, or you become influential, or you become impactful, because that's all we need. Contribute and become impactful with the ideas that you have, and hopefully those ideas are the one that truly makes people's lives much, much better. Love your contribution there. There is, however, a second myth that you and I know to be prevalent among business owners, and do talk about that.
Okay, yeah. So we touched on it a little bit before, I suppose, as well. I think just the fact that to reach a good level of self-leadership just takes a lot of work. You're constantly working. You're always trying to achieve that level of greatness, if you like. And I think it's more about, if you just shift the perception so that you view it more that actually it's a lifestyle. So because there's lots of different elements to successful and good self-leadership working together, you can work on each of them and all of them at different points, but they will naturally be an expression of who you are. So I think it's more, if you adopt it, that this is, lifestyle is part of how I express myself to the world, how I use my gifts, my talents, how I manage the areas that I'm not so good at, those sort of things. I think if you keep the focus on the fact that it's a lifestyle and it's less of a job or less of work, yes, there is effort involved. Let's be honest. Anything worthwhile, we have to invest ourselves in. Right. We also have to overcome, the times when we're not feeling 100%. Maybe we feel tired. Maybe we're disappointed because something didn't quite work as we'd hoped. So you have to have a certain level of input of intentionality and focus. Not saying, if great self-leadership was just a natural thing, then everybody would be really successful, and in whatever way they define success, but they would be a lot more successful and fulfilled than what they are. I think a lot of the challenges is we listen to the wrong sort of things. The myths take hold of our thinking, and we don't actually pursue what we could, I think, when it comes to developing our own strengths, our own areas, and then how that helps us to lead other people as well. I think for people that are listening to this, the fact that they've tuned in, that they're listening to this conversation, shows in itself that they're on a growth journey, that they're investing their time, they're being intentional about learning about more about leadership. So maybe they're further on the journey than they realize.
That's right.
And it's just certain aspects that they need to focus on and develop. And that comes with, you know, as our level of awareness becomes higher in certain things, where you think, actually, I'm okay at this, but there's certain areas that I really need to focus and, you know, develop a bit more time on. Or as you say, you see somebody out there that's doing something, you get inspired and you think, right, I know it's achievable because they're doing it. I just need to work on certain aspects in me so that I can actually do the same thing. And maybe that is, I need to manage my time better so that I have more time and effort focused on the things that I want to grow and develop.
Yeah, I love that. I want to talk to the person listening for a moment. You know, life has brought you to where you are today. And I want to honor you for really even taking time to study and look and even get the book we put out already today. And also listen to this. You know, it shows that we are kindred spirit. You know, I was reading the statistic, Trevor, you know, the amount of people that takes on leadership and wants to learn more about that is less than 7%. A lot of people, they will go on to other areas, but really focusing on it and say, okay, this is my journey, this is what I want to do, the numbers are very, very, very low. So the person who is reading this know that there's greatness in them or in you already. You know that you are called into leadership. So I want to honor you and encourage you to keep going with that.